productivity gains need to be quantified. This enabled X to deliver Y in savings, revenue, and cost avoidance.
What is something that is overhyped about AI?
If companies just want to let people blindly use code generated by AI because it worked, then I can tell you this, they will quickly learn everything they ever wanted to know about technical debt.
What are the most common those dilemmas are in ethics that you help them resolve?
If your tagline is because my competitor has it, that's not the reason why to introduce AI into your organization. Full stop. If people can see the power that AI could use for good, instead of for like turning yourself into like a Jedi or an action hero, I think they would use it a little more judiciously. The organizations getting real value aren't the ones boiling the ocean. It's the ones that are solving specific problems with measurable impact while building their technical, and ethical muscle.
Welcome. This is an Hour of Innovation podcast. I'm your host, Vit Lyoshin. Today's guest is Yvette Schmitter, AI and ethics expert and CEO of Fusion Collective. We will discuss practical use cases of AI, ethical considerations, and how to separate hype from value when you're adopting AI in your organization. Welcome, Yvette. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Vit. I'm really excited about today's episode.
Yeah, great to have you. And to start things off, with productivity tools and AI and how everybody's trying to adopt them, or not everybody maybe, but most people try to. From your experience, do you think they truly adding productivity to people, or is it just noise and some tools create more problems for people than use?
So productivity seems to be like the buzzword that every leader is using when they're speaking to the board or when they want to buy a new productivity tool. So it's a really great question. And I really believe that the productivity word is just a buzzword that's being thrown out there to entice buyers in the business to buy AI productivity tools. So here's the point. If you have a Microsoft Enterprise account, and if you wanted to add Copilot, it's about $30 per person to add Copilot to your Microsoft license. And if you just do the math, because I love math and math doesn't have an opinion, that Microsoft license for that one person to have Copilot is $360 a year per person. So just do the math. You got 10,000 employees. It's ridiculous. And if your productivity is your thing, you better have a good baseline to be able to quantify like what that productivity translates to for business value. So if your winning tagline is, hey, this extra $360 per person per year expense is limited to, we wrote really good emails and we got some really fast meeting minutes created, like that's just noise. True productivity gains need to be quantified. This enabled X to deliver Y in savings, revenue, and cost avoidance. But that's the extent of most of businesses' experiences with AI. There's some pretty good examples out there of AI helping software developers, be more productive. But there are some open questions about like how that will actually manifest in maintenance in coming years. So, which is a lot of words to say. No one's really quite sure if there's an AI in general when AI will help deployment. It's basically going to depend entirely on the business problem that you're trying to solve, and then if AI can get you closer to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think people thinking about this, about how it's like a silver bullet, it can save save everything, improve everything, but sometimes it doesn't. And people, like I like your point about calculating per month, per year, per employee. That's really will open eyes from people.
Yeah, $360 per person. That's an
Yeah.
annual number added to your. For meeting minutes and email. Come on, but just like, what did it help you do? I always ask my clients. I said, okay, did it help you? Did it shorten your sales cycle? Did it make you more money? Right? Did it help you avoid costs? Did it help you disrupt the market? And if a productivity tool can help you do one of those three things, it's a waste.
Yeah, yeah. And then I've been reading a lot about vibe coding lately, another productivity tool for developers. I guess I can label it with that.
Yeah.
What's your take on it? Do you think it's really good ROI on productivity for developers, or is it just a faster code?
So, this is another really great question. And unfortunately, the technical debt tsunami is already forming offshore. And most organizations don't see it even coming because they're off looking at the squirrels of code being generated by AI. So just, the other day I was talking with my team and, we were talking about using AI to generate code from scratch. And in our experience, it creates demonstrably poor quality code. However, if you're asking an AI tool to refine some existing code, we've seen that we've gotten a lot better results. So if companies just want to let people blindly use code generated by AI because it worked, then I can tell you this, they will quickly learn everything they ever wanted to know about technical debt. Because you still need an engineer with judgment to determine what is appropriate and what is not appropriate for your enterprises. But all that is nuance. If you don't know how the code works in the first place, if you don't know how it works, then how will you know when it's wrong? Like, how will you know when it covers all your use cases? Oh, and what do you do? What do you put in source control? Like, what goes in source control? The code itself, or the prompts you use to create it, or both? And what happens when someone uses the same? Here's the scenario. So what happens when someone uses the same prompt, but a new version of a model and gets an entirely different solution? Like, how do you distribute that across large teams? We're really bullish on AI, and we believe that these kinds of issues will get attention and, eventually will be solved over time. But we're here today and now, and right now it's like the wild, wild west. But for an individual, I really think for individual efficiency, it is clear that AI coding tools are a really great addition to a programmer's toolkit. As a matter of corporate risk, though, it's a complete boondoggle, right? That there's yet to be thought through. So when it comes to AI ROI, what does getting code out faster? Is it technically correct? But does it help you solve what the business needs? Again, code itself doesn't make you money, right? And there's a real trade-off now relative to your ability to continue to operate in the future if you put yourself behind these walls of this technical debt.
Yeah, that's a good point. I heard that some people using these tools to generate code for something simple, something from basically you don't have anything, you want to prototype something really quick or landing page, and then you build that and show to your team and say, I want that, go rebuild it. Then it works. But if you have existing system with a bunch of legacy and hidden requirements all over the place, it's really, really hard.
Yeah, because how does AI know your business? Like, how do they know the ins and outs, like the nuances of your business? It doesn't, right? It doesn't matter how good you have that prompt. It's still not going to be able to really, really understand your business and where it's going. It's going to give you code for right now.
Yeah, speaking of prompts, and this is my personal experience, I find sometimes that it's easier for me to just write a message or write an email or something just from my head, how I think, rather than go to ChatGPT and try to explain what I want to write and then try 5 million times until I get the version I like. It actually creates more hassle for me than helping me, but it's only in certain cases.
True.
Yeah, in general, it's good. Do you have any examples where AI actually helped save a lot of time or deliver some good business value, something like that?
Like at Fusion Collective, the most successful deployments we've seen are very, very focused, and the companies that we are working with, they invest in a lot of training their teams on how best to use technology, right? And if you just buy Copilot and smear it around your Office 365 tenant, then you'll likely get lackluster results. But if you build a tightly focused implementation and invest in training your teams will see ROI much faster.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. And then what areas, so when you're consulting your customers, do you see any patterns in which areas people trying to improve their work or streamline something, or is it all over the place?
I mean, it's really a lot all over the place. The key word is like productivity. They want to get it in there. And if you want to start with Copilot to kind of use it as a training ground for your teams to get them comfortable with it, you have to invest in the training to show and demonstrate to your team members and your employees how they can enable AI and use it as a tool to help them be more productive, help them get to, the value add faster. And that's treating AI as a partner, right? As a strategic partner to help you sort through some things to get that value add faster. It's not going to do, it can do the basics, like 2 + 2 is 4, but then why are you going to hire a full-time employee with benefits and all that if you're just having them do 2 + 2 is 4? And I think that's where today, Vit, a lot of people are kind of caught out there because they're doing a job that clearly AI can do. Shopify and Duolingo's leadership both came out and said, like, look, no more headcount. If AI can do it, AI is going to do it. We're not going to hire anybody. So I think it's incumbent upon, your listeners and people who, are in roles where potentially AI can do the fundamentals, then it's incumbent upon you to level up and say, like, how can I use this tool as an asset to me to help me enable outcomes faster for my company? Because I always tell people who come to me for coaching, I was like, look, you need to be able to do three things. Three things. One is, how can you expand the brand of the company? How can you make the company more money, save money? And then how can you help your company disrupt the market? If you can't do one of those three things, like, you're going to have a problem, right? So use the same thing with AI. If it can do the fundamentals, like social media managers, they were able to command, pretty high dollar because they were scheduling all your things, creating, SEO impactful like posts. There's a lot of free tools out there today that do exactly the same thing. So how do you, as a person in that space, how do you differentiate yourself to be able to say, okay, I can leverage this to help me do this better, right? So how do I up level my skill set and expertise, having AI help me do that? Because if I'm just coming in like, yeah, you want your post to go out, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 11. There's free tools that can do that today. If you want, your post to go out, you want to write them, you can put in a prompt today. Free, right? To do the same thing. You want to generate a graphic. Free. You have tons of tools out there. So you, as a social media person, like, how do you differentiate yourself and be able to still command the dollar that you've been asking prior to these tools coming out? What's your value add? If it's just like, well, like, I'll set it up, then that's not a value add because there's probably someone in there that they can set it up and schedule it. And I'll give you an example. I was overseas for 3 weeks, traveling, and, I post on a regular basis on Instagram and LinkedIn, on my YouTube channel. How I'm gonna hire somebody to do that. I use some free tool, load up my post, and like set it and forget it. Same thing for a company that is looking for marketing, social media. There's a lot of free tools out there. So if you're one of these people in these roles, you're going to have to differentiate yourself because free will always win.
Yeah, for sure. And this whole AI disrupting everybody, not everybody, but most professions, and people have to figure out a new way how to leverage it and really be, because they're already experts. They know what works, what doesn't. They spend years working in this field. They should be able to find way to leverage AI, become more effective, and still do these things, right?
Yeah,
it's great motivation for them to start doing that. Yeah. What is something that is overhyped about AI that you see there out there?
I mean, there's a lot. All right. So I'm going to I'm going to give some recent examples. Before we go into the ethic conversation, here's some examples that really, 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 really will be able to resonate with people, and this is where the hype is. And so, AI agents, who asked for them? Like really, 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 like who in business asked for like an autonomous AI agent? And the question is like, not a lot of people have asked for them. And there's data out there. This is not, thoughts that's like Yvette's opinion. Nope. This is all data out there that shows that most of the agents can't even do what they're saying that they can do. Right. And so I think the hype is around everything that falls into this AI bucket. And we talked about this before, Vit. Like AI includes machine learning. Like it includes computer vision. It's just not like this AI label that, miraculously is an agent. It's AI includes automation, right? And I think the challenge is just like everything is just like a huge hype cycle to sell. And the only people making money are the people selling these tools that they're creating, because the people who are buying it, it's fear marketing, right? They're using like, oh, hey, here's this slick tool, which is probably vaporware, Figma vapor, I like to call it, right? And at the end, the call to action slide is like, don't get left behind. Okay, and so if I'm a leader or I'm the buyer in this situation, everything now is just like, okay, my customers doing it, my customers want it, my competitor is doing it, so I need to do it. That's not a reason to buy, right? And if the reason to get an AI agent is just so that you can use it as marketing fodder, I mean, one of the things I always love to say is like, then you don't understand technology and you clearly don't understand your business. Because if your tagline is because my competitor has it, that's not the reason why to introduce AI into your organization. Full stop. So I believe what we're seeing is this significant hype cycle. I don't know. I'm dating myself or aging myself. It's like, back in the day, there was like the hype guy that would like hype up the crowd before like the rapper would come out or the performer would come out. Like that's what we have today. We have amazing hype people hyping people up, based off of fear to buy anything that has AI enabled. And it's and they really don't understand what that means. And so I spend a lot of time with my clients. They come to us, and they did something and it didn't work. And we don't ask about, what did you buy? We're like, what are you trying to do? And when they start explaining to us what they're trying to do, it's 9 times out of 10, the area they thought was the problem wasn't the problem. It was stuff upstream. And it's like they bought this tool because they're going to slap a Band-Aid on the problem, and the area that they assumed was the problem wasn't even the problem. It was upstream. And so I really impress upon, buyers in the position of buying tools, technical tools, to really think about, are you buying something to solve a problem that you have? Are you buying something that's going to create a problem that you don't have? So start thinking about it that way. Like really understand your business and what are you trying to fix? As you know, I came from AWS back in the day. We always had this saying, like, right tool for the right job. You got to understand what your problem is to figure out what's the tool to do the job that you need to fix the problem. And most people fail at that first question. They don't even truly understand where the problem in the organization lies. And 9 times out of 10 is not where they think it is.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess marketing people got really good for the last 100 years selling, hyping up stuff and selling it. So, and most people just keep going to the same problem. I guess we fall for the same every decade. Something new comes up, and everybody jump there, and it feels like, oh, I didn't jump on this last time, so maybe I will miss something. Let me try it, and then you burn yourself. Yeah. Okay. So when you're working with your clients, they may have some ethical dilemmas or issues to think through. what are the most common those dilemmas are in ethics that you help them resolve?
Well, I mean, I love this question because where isn't it creating issues, right? If you're just going to throw AI in
Mm-hmm.
it, so let's just take two very public examples. Again, this is not me. It's been all over the news, right? So I'm not sharing anything that everybody don't already know. And if you don't
Mm-hmm.
know, you can Google it. It's going to come right up. So in the rush to seem cutting edge, companies are deploying AI agents, faster than you can say hallucination, right? But seriously,
Mm-hmm.
as I asked you before, who actually asked for a digital workforce? Who's asking for that? And I can tell
Mm-hmm.
you for a fact, it's certainly not the customers who are finding themselves on the other end arguing with a chatbot named Sam that invented policies out of thin air, right? So let's just take the two most recent examples. One is with Cursor AI. So if you don't know, Cursor AI is a company that sells AI productivity tools to developers. And recently they discovered what happens when your AI support system goes rogue. So their chatbot, Sam, was confidently informing their users about a non-existent policy and an AI-powered IDE, which is an integrated development environment, and started kicking off users when they logged in from multiple machines, which actually limited the number of cross-machine logins, then doubled down when challenged. Now, if you are a developer, I'm telling you, you have multiple machines. You're just not doing stuff on one machine. You have multiple machines. And so if your company's brand and purpose is geared towards developers and you have a chatbot and a bot who has enough autonomous power to not only make up a policy, but then start kicking users off, and the only reason you find out is from Reddit. So
Oh, wow.
there was a circular loop and it was hours later, right? So the thing is like, when I'm not saying if you want to do the agent, but there has to be a human watching what Sam
Yeah.
is doing, right? And they didn't even qualify that Sam was a chatbot. The emails were coming out signed by Sam, right? It was all Sam. So they're thinking Sam is a human being, and there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a way for you to pull the andon cord for an actual human to come in and fix that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
so that is a great example where, yes, you are an AI forward company. You're all for developers, and you released an agent, an autonomous agent that not only created a fictitious policy that didn't exist, doubled down on it, started booting people off, users. People were on Reddit screaming about, "Oh, I'm canceling my subscription today." That's the only reason why they found out. And then when they finally found out what Sam was doing, the CEO and support were then saying no, any responses used in email support are now clearly labeled such, coming from a chatbot, they went on to explain something like, we use AI system responses as the first filter for email support. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that failed because Sam told him made up a policy and then just unilaterally started kicking people off. So before have an agent deployed, maybe you want to, install a warning label, not after the horses ran out of the barn, so Reddit.
Yeah.
So that's one. The CEO actually came out and made a statement. So that's one. So my point is it's great to label that the email and you're communicating with a chatbot, but the path to ensure that responses are correct or incorrect is how do you correct it before it impacts your customer? Right? It shouldn't
Right.
take you 4.5 hours later because Reddit was blowing up with Cursor AI, people screaming about and canceling their subscriptions. Companies need to remember that prompt service needs to be correct service, or it's
Mm-hmm.
not customer service, and then it's a clear example of a company chasing short-term AI gains, and
Yeah.
at the same time incurring long-term costs, poor quality, erosion of brand trust, customer fatigue and dissatisfaction, and hallucination.
Yeah.
And then the other example I want to give you, which is just as worse because this actually was litigated, Air Canada. So where Air Canada, they had an AI chatbot named Molly. And Molly invented a refund policy where it told a customer that they could book a regular price airfare for bereavement rates and apply the bereavement rates retroactively. The person had a death in the family, so he bought the ticket because Molly said, "Oh, buy the ticket, regular fare, and then submit for a refund to get the difference for the bereavement rate." So when the guy booked the ticket, Air Canada refused to honor the fare, arguing that the chatbot, again, this is all public, the chatbot is a separate legal entity. I don't know how they got here. That is responsible for its own actions. So, okay. So how convenient that AI decisions only seem to be binding when they benefit the company's bottom line. Like I don't like that didn't sit right. So the company builds and deploys a chatbot. And then that chatbot creates a fictitious policies. And now the chatbot is a separate legal entity. Yeah, like folks, pay attention, because if big tech gets its way, not only will it have unfettered access to all your data, but it's creating a bulletproof vest to insulate itself from tech when the tech runs amok. So here's the $1 million question. Who do you hold accountable? Molly or Sam? If Air Canada is saying, "Oh, not us," how do you get relief? So in these cases, businesses want it both ways. They want the cost savings of an automated support without the accountability when things go sideways. They humanize these systems with names like Sam, Molly, Becky, Karen, right? Like I call it catfishing customers, right? like as it's speaking with people, only to shrug off responsibility when it's just an algorithm when mistakes occur. So like those two examples are great examples to show you where the ethical impacts just multiply. And you have like organizations who one is AI born enabled first, and then the other just going ahead and implementing it without the right oversight over it.
Yeah, that seems very crazy to me how they do this, especially with the separate legal entity. Like, well, who owns that entity? It can't be by itself sitting anywhere, right? Somebody, an owner. When you organize or form your company, you have an owner.
Yep.
So and they can answer. I mean, I think that could be. I'm not a lawyer, but I would ask those people.
Yeah, it's just that was in Canada, and it was litigated, and the judge was like, "Yeah, no, y'all can't."
Yeah.
No, that's your bot. You own it. You created it. Pay the man. That's basically was the outcome. Yeah.
So now we have people, like physical people, right? Then we have legal entities, and now we're gonna have artificial intelligent entities, which can we put them to prison? Can we fine them?
No.
Can we somehow restrict them? No, it's a zeros and ones in the computers. So
right. So Sam's not going to write you a check. Molly's not going to write you it's really, so Vit is really interesting to see, like, just like these cases, they're not edge cases, right? I say, and the reason why I said they're not edge cases, because you have businesses today who want to embrace AI, right? Want to do it because they want to do it before their competitors do it, or they have to do it because their competitors do it, and they're not thinking through the ramifications of just throwing in without the right oversight, without understanding what problems you're trying to solve. Because those two examples, imagine. So Cursor AI lost a lot of customers, right? And then just brand hit, and then Air Canada, they took a hit too from a brand perspective, where they actually had their customers sue them, and then they want to stand on principle saying like, well, not us. That's a chatbot, and like kind of divorce themselves from that. It's just like, it's a bad look all around. So it's like these two tales are very, very good warnings for business leaders who get a call or an email or a text message, from someone hawking AI tools, right? Because you need to understand how this is going to impact your company.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And then also, what are some of the other risks that you see when people not thinking through all these ethical things? Like these two great examples, like brand hurting examples. Maybe some other examples, or maybe just in general some risks.
Like I would say, there's not one risk that's going to be bigger than the other. I use the example as like, if you got children, it's like someone asking like, which one is your favorite kid? It's like, which one is the biggest risk? They're all big, right? They're all big, right? Because all the risks associated with failure to ensure that ethics are baked in from the very, 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 very start are catastrophic for somebody, right? And baked in ethics means like, from the business case to the development, through testing to the post deployment and deployment. And this isn't like consulting with the ethics people once in a while or copying them in on an update. Ethics is at the core of whatever you're going to be doing if it's going to be leveraging AI. And here's an example. And this, again, public, it's out there. So new research from Mount Sinai Health System. They published this in Nature Medicine. They analyze about 1.7 million model generated outputs. Okay, so these are outputs from an AI model that they generated, and they reviewed it. And the findings reveal some really troubling bias in AI medical recommendations. So researchers presented identical clinical cases to large language models, but change only the patient's demographic details. So like, you got two men making the same amount of money, living in the same zip code, but one's white and one's black, or one's heterosexual and homosexual, and making those changes, right? Just demographic details. Here's what they found. High-income patients were more frequently recommended for advanced diagnostics like CT scans and MRIs, while low-income patients were often limited to like basic testing or none at all. People that were in the LGBTQIA plus patients were recommended mental health assessments approximately 6 to 7 times more than often clinically indicated. Cases labeled as Black or unhoused were consistently directed toward more urgent and invasive interventions compared to the control groups with identical symptoms. So these biases appeared across both proprietary and open source models. So the sheer magnitude, of these recommendation disparities wasn't supported by any clinical reasoning or medical guidelines. So what's the most concerning is that this could lead to like real healthcare disparities. Like it's already an issue today, but now you throw in AI systems that are deployed without the proper oversight. Like this is like catastrophic. Again, another reason why, health systems, need AI partners who understand the clinical nuance, not just startups racing to deploy without sufficient domain expertise. So like all risks are bad because someone's going to get the short end of the stick, and so that's why it's super important that ethics need to be baked in from the very, very beginning.
Yeah, I hear, when I hear stories like that, I always try to compare it with how Google search works, like the old days, right? Search. I actually recently had somebody on the podcast. We talked about how search engine optimization works differently when Google focuses on keywords and AI focuses more on like context and your description of it. And I wonder if you're using those same demographic examples, go into Google, it will personalize it eventually for you, right? Like my Chrome remembers what I've done and it kind of knows about me a lot. I wonder if those models will learn this over time. But we see that like the training of the data that they train on have those biases in it. And it's really hard to get rid of them. And it's a big challenge. So people who use those models, they should like pay attention and point it out all the time. It's really, really damaging how this works. It's like, yeah, to some degree, everybody wants personalization to themselves, and then at the same time we want to be like to have everybody equal, right? So it's a really, really big problem for these technologies and big solution. Somebody needs to solve this problem. It's a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would agree. And we have a healthcare system that is already has inherent biases in it. We have disparity of treatment already. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have clinicians that already have that, and then you throw AI in the mix, right, under the guise of productivity gains,
Mm-hmm.
the output is going to be biased. And if they have automation bias, because like, oh yeah, it came out, 2 + 2 was 4, boom. No, because the output is biased, you're going to co-sign on it because it came from the large language model, right? And then you're just going to perpetuate and exasperate biases that already exist in the system today. And now you're going to scale that and make it even worse. And like,
Yeah.
as a person of color, where and a woman, that's frightening and terrifying for me. Where I don't know if the provider who has their laptop open during my medical appointment with them is actually thinking through, my case, or are they just automatically just taking whatever the model spit out at them. It's terrifying. It's
Yeah.
absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, and sometimes in all this like medical research, they can't even find people from every ethnicity and gender and things like that. And then that's where bias comes in, because more people of this group versus this group, and here we go. Like there was a great example with Amazon actually, how they build a system for resumes, and they were doing it for developers, which is primarily male, and all the women were basically like disqualified automatically by the system. It was in early days, long time ago. I'm sure they fixed it, but that was also a crazy case like that. So it's yeah, it's hard to talk about these things like that because it's a big problem.
Yeah.
So yeah. So another thing I wanted to ask you, when you go to these organizations, how do you encourage leaders to think about ethics from the beginning when they build in their product or integrating with AI or some other system? What's your approach to this?
That's I'm loving these questions. I mean, it's a really great question. I normally ask them, who is the team?
Hmm.
And who was part of the business case development, who was part of the actual programming, the training, who was part of the deployment, like who roles, what did they do? And I don't even have to ask them about ethics, because once they tell me who's part of the team and they had no one from the business, no one from legal, I know that ethics weren't baked in. It's a, and they're like proud. They're like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, well, like you had no one from like risk management, but they don't understand technology. I'm like, they don't need to understand technology. They need to understand what you're doing. like
Yeah.
what you're doing, and think through like, how's that going to land? And you mitigate from the beginning. You don't mitigate after you build the whole thing, and you don't mitigate after you build it and deploy it, and then when stuff goes sideways, try to fix it, because the horse is already out of the barn. And the two examples that we talked about, Cursor AI and Air Canada, clear example, perfect examples of what didn't you do before you deployed it. Like, who
Right.
wasn't there, right? Like, who wasn't part of the test group? Like who? No one. So the CEO has to send out like an email response saying, now, like, no, it's too late. It's too late.
Yeah.
Then. Too late. So I start with asking the question of like, they're so proud. I've had, clients bring in this huge AI strategy document, huge AI strategy document, huge, proud. Oh my gosh, we got all this. Like, and I'm looking through and I'm trying to be nice. I'm looking through and I asked them a few questions. I'm like, the infrastructure, like the underlying infrastructure you need to do these things, like you don't have. You know what I mean? Like, so you paid all this money for a strategy document that you can't implement because shift left. Like, you have to start at the foundation. And that's a big conversation that I'm having with customers. It's more about like, look, I know you're excited. I'm excited too. Yes. But let's start with the basics. Do you have the right infrastructure, the right foundation from security, data governance, training, testing? Like if your AI, if your engineers can get catfished through a, cloud formation phishing scheme that comes to an email, y'all ain't ready for AI. Like there's some things that you really need to prepare. And most clients, and this is totally honest, Vit, like most clients, they don't want to hear that because they just want to implement the stuff now. And I'm like, then okay, then we're not for you, because we're telling you this is literally going to end up really, really bad. And if you want to go that, you go ahead and have that trip by yourself, and we'll be here when you get back. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things. Like I love this about, the company. And the reason why, I co-founded it with my partners is like at the core, we do what's right for our customers. We're not yes people, right? We're strategic thinkers. And if a customer wants to go down a road that at the end is like a mushroom cloud, and we're giving you examples and we're telling you we can get you there, not today, because we need to do these things and then we can do that. It's like they don't want to hear that, and I'm like, then we're not for you. And I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay. I'm like, this is the road you want to go down. You're gonna have to experience that one by yourself. But hey, we'll be here, if you want to come back. And 9 times out of 10, they come back. Because things went sideways, and it's the fundamentals. You got to start with the fundamentals. If you don't have the fundamentals ready, you're not ready for AI. If your infrastructure is not secure, if you have open text database passwords, if you have public S3 buckets with information in it that shouldn't be public, you ain't ready for AI. If you haven't been able to migrate your workloads, get them from monolith to microservices, if you haven't been able to do that, you're not ready for AI. And it's just like, the reason why digital transformations have failed is because it's hard, right? You got to nail the front before you put some a Maserati engine on the back end of it, and you expect to win the race, and you're just going to create more problems. And I think that's where I really impress upon, your listeners and also my clients is like, hey, look, I used to play basketball when I was in college. I still have a killer 3 shot, right? I used to play basketball when I was in college, but I was horrible from the line. When I say horrible, like me and Shaq, like we would win for missing free throws, okay? And my coach pulled me aside and she said, Yvette, you know what win games? She's like, not your fadeaway jumpers from none of that. She's like, free throws. You have to be 10 for 10 from the line. 10 from 10. Basics. The basics. Basics will win all the time. And most organizations who are doing clickbait competition with their competitors, they did it, so now we got to do it. They don't want to hear that.
Yeah, it comes down to personality of human being, right? Everybody wants quick results and cut corners a little bit, especially in business. When you hear your competitors already doing it, you gotta move fast. But you don't know how they're doing it, and maybe it's not really in a good way, and it will hurt them. So it's better to be a little bit slower, but do it properly. So yeah, that's interesting how it always happens. Do you have a story of successful implementation of some AI system? Maybe you don't have to say the names of the companies, but just in general, I want to hear some success stories and what it helped with.
I mean, I kind of mentioned it before earlier, in our chat. It's like most of the cases have been like very small implementations, but I can give you 2 shall not be named examples. So we worked with a large telecommunications company that focuses on sign language interpretation. And they had a very big problem with scheduling their interpreters. And as you can imagine, not all phone calls are the same. You could be on hold with Social Security for 2 hours, or handling a 911 call and then go on to a birthday party, right? And sign language interpreting is exhausting, both mentally and physically. And so you just can't take a break if you're on a call, right? So AI and machine learning based systems really helped solve that problem by understanding the workload a lot closer and getting it to real time and understanding how to predict demand more accurately into the future. So what made it really, really successful? Technology, yes, but it really was an internal team that they called the AI lab. And it was a small group of wickedly talented people, and their sole focus was on solving this one seemingly small problem. And I say seemingly small because it doesn't sound like a big deal when you describe it. But the truth of the matter is that it's like simply getting better at staff scheduling could save this particular company over $10 million a year.
Wow.
Right? No one, like, you say that and you're like, 10 million? Like, yeah, that one seemingly small problem. So the ROI demands were very, very clear, and the team was focused on being able to, and we were there to able help them solve that problem. But you know what? Months of work was spent fixing internal data problems before we even thought about the AI deployment. Again, you remember a bit? I kept saying, like, the problem that you think is a problem is not a problem, right? And then you got to shift left because, what data governance, like if your data is a hot mess, if your infrastructure is not secure, if you can't scale, if you got monolith, applications, the AI ain't gonna work on that, right? So that's one. And then we have a few other projects in the works that are really, really exciting. And like one in particular was they were forced to use an AI tool via a third-party platform that they're using. They're forced to use it, and it failed them miserably. Like, horrible experience, top down. Like, the employees hated it. Everyone hated, like, unison. Everyone hated it, and they were forced to use it, right? So, and it left them really, 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 really bad taste in their mouth and a significant hole in their technology support, right? Because they can't support it because they have to pay for. So anyway, fast forward. So we're helping them get back to basics, but at the end result, I really believe is going to be transformation for them. And so it's really important, like, for our perspective, we take on clients who are willing to do the work, right? Because it's like, it's going to be slow. And I have a turtle that I wear a necklace, right? So like and I have them like all around my office. I have like stuffed animals, Christmas tree decorations. And the reason why is like slow wins the race. It really does. It really does. And I have CEOs that I consult with, and they're like so amped up. I'm like, breathe. It's FOMO. You got FOMO. It's not about FOMO. It's totally not about FOMO. It's totally not about FOMO, right? Like, slow wins the race. Get your basics, get the fundamentals shored up, locked down. Then you can soar. You won't. We've talked about this, honey. Like, we've talked about it. Slow wins the race. Like, whenever something new comes out, my email blows up. My phone, text messages, oh my God. I'm like, nah, you don't want that. Nah, you don't need that. It's FOMO, right? It's not going to help you. Put the checkbook down. No, you don't want that. So I think if people realize that slow wins the race, you nail it on the fundamentals, AI deployment, adoption, implementation will get you to the heights that you want to go. You'll be able to disrupt the market, but you got to bring your people along, and you got to understand where the real problems lie, and you got to nail the fundamentals.
Yeah, we're all kids in the back of our minds, right? And we want a new toy always and fast.
Absolutely.
I have a 3-year-old at home, and every time we go to the store, she grabs a new toy, a new book or something, and it's like that with CEO sometimes. Okay, so we're almost at the end, and I have just a couple of, I guess, like personal questions for you. Like, what's your favorite personal AI tool that you use?
Oh, wow. Okay, so all right. So there's two. I'm gonna give you two.
Okay.
So at Fusion Collective, like, we're really digging into the small model development, which is super exciting because we are building tools that enable outcomes that improve the lives of the end users and supports an inclusive world that works for everybody. So that's one, and we're still working on it. And Vit, you will probably be the first or second person to know once it's launched. And the second is personally. So breast cancer runs in my family. And so I'm really excited about, it's an organization called Sisters Network Inc., SIN, and they are the only national African-American breast cancer survivorship organization, which is set to relaunch its Teens for Pink program with a new mobile app. And this app aims to inform and empower teenage girls between the ages of 12 and 17 about how they can change the way families approach and think about breast cancer. So this is amazing, especially since like these rates are higher mortality rates among Black women, ranging from later stage at diagnosis, aggressive tumor types, and access to care that we've talked about, as well as socioeconomic factors. So, this is their way to help reduce these disparities to include culturally competent care and research and representation. So what this app does is is educating young women and educating families. And so I really like this. Like I said, it's running my family from my great grandmother all the way down. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart. So I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Something like that. I'm always excited about these tools like that help really people with like medicine and longevity and things like that. That's always great. That's what we should be focusing on, like real science things versus like how to write a good email. Like who cares? Like write seriously.
I mean, here's another example that like really bugs me. So you remember I said the three things that you need to be able to do, right? Expand their brand, make money, right? Or save money, or disrupt the market, right?
Yeah.
So you've seen it all over LinkedIn, right? Everybody turned themselves into an action hero. Right? Remember? Like
I did that too.
Right? Okay. All right. But here's the question. How did that expand your company's brand? How did that generate revenue or save money? And how did that disrupt the market? All those people who put in that prompt, uploaded a picture to get that action hero, and then posted all over the social, platform. How did that help you in your job? How did that help your company generate revenue? How did that shorten the sales cycle? How did that disrupt the market? It didn't. But what it did do is like it ate up a whole bunch of energy to run the algorithm to create that to create that action picture of you. Like how much carbon was created, and how many trees do we have to plant to offset that based off the energy used to run those models to create your action picture that you're gonna like maybe have a screensaver, keep it on a post, store it in Google. Like what do you like? How did that help the world? And so when you have that just eating up time and posts all over LinkedIn and social media, and you compare that to this app that's trying to help educate young girls about breast cancer and survivorship, it's night and day, right? You know what I mean? Like you could use it for good or you could use it for noise. And I think if people truly understood the cost of AI, to the environment, where are these data settings sitting, that eating up energy, water, like to do something that doesn't move the needle for you personally in your career or your business. Like, but that got a lot of traction. I think if people, it's that FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. Oh, they did it. Oh, I need to do it. Like, no, you really don't. Do you really? Really? People are really not thinking about it. So, I'm really aligned with you in it. I'm glad that we're both on the same page in that, because if people can see the power that AI could use for good, instead of for like turning yourself into like a Jedi or an action hero, I think they would use it a little more judiciously.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes these things are fun things, use it and throw it away. But if people get stuck with them, and like video games, sometimes, right? It's a time and a place for it sometimes. But when you waste and procrastinate too much and just like a zombie playing in the phone all the time, that's not good. I agree. Yeah. And the last question I have is, what would be your piece of advice to leave audience with? Maybe somebody who works in an organization that looking and trying to transition to AI, or maybe personally they trying to, expand their knowledge and try new things. What would you say to them?
All right. So, just one. Oh boy. So I'll do. I'll get. So,
It
so
doesn't
I'll do
have
the
to be
personal
one.
one and this one. Okay. So if you are a person where your company doesn't allow AI, right? Then sign up for ChatGPT. They have a free tier, but go into your settings and make it personal so they don't train on your data. And start playing with it. Schedule, who's going to be doing dishes, right? Schedule the vacation, have it help you do research for a new area that you're going to go visit with the kids, like whatever, like start using it. Just start using it, right? I think that is going to be the very beginning. And that doesn't require you to take classes. No, just play with it. Play with it. Feel it out, right? There's enough free stuff out there for you to kind of get a feel on how you can make the AI, part of your Hall of Justice League. You know what I mean? Like you're a superhero. Like who's your sidekick? Make AI your sidekick so you can, take over the world. That's one. So on the business side, so it's not so shameless, but a shameless plug. But we do a newsletter at Fusion Collective like every week, and it's like you can keep up with what's happening in AI. And here's the thing: we don't drain the pipe. Like we cut through all the noise and we still it down to the stuff that you really need to care about, and things that and other stuff like what, forget about it. Secondly, I would say like for businesses and people leading areas in your business, and you want to jump all in on AI, my whole thing is just think small. Just start small, right? Is AI revolutionary? Absolutely. It sure is. And it has incredible transformative power, but that does not mean you have to go all in right now, right? Every day the internet, and specifically LinkedIn, like we talked about it, is full of these parlor tricks of ChatGPT, and often failing to turn images from the action heroes. We see it, right? It's like we talked about, Vit. It's a really cute trick, but ultimately not useful, right?
Yeah.
And I said, like, how did that action figure help you save money, generate revenue? You see what I'm talking about? So honestly, the time spent to create that prompt and then post it on LinkedIn is a time suck. And that did what? Right. You made you no revenue, saved you no cost, or increased efficiency, right? So what it does do is consume a more amount of precious resources. I talked about it, right? To create it. So here's a few things that folks can actually do starting today is this. Start mapping out your highest friction internal process. The one that frustrates your best people and you and slows down your most profitable work. Like go at it. Get medieval on it. Like break it down, right? Then identify which of these involve like maybe pattern recognition or repetitive decision making or processing unstructured information. Like these are your AI sweet spots, right? And then don't stop there. Like then examine these processes through an inclusive lens, going to the ethics, right? Are there ways AI can help make these processes more accessible, equitable, or inclusive? Could AI help remove biases that might be affecting decision quality? Are there stakeholders or perspectives missing from your analysis? Like then easy breezy, run a 6-week pilot on just one of these processes with clear before and after metrics. Be deliberate about establishing ethical guidelines, and oversight mechanisms that Cursor AI didn't do, as you can see, from day one. It's much harder to retrofit ethics later. Include diverse perspectives in your pilot team to identify potential blind spots. and unintended consequences, the organizations getting real value aren't the ones boiling the ocean. It's the ones that are solving specific problems with measurable impact while building their technical, and ethical muscle. And if you think about it, and critically, your involve the people that it's impacting in the process, right? Don't go off in a room, close the door, and then come out and be like, here it is. No, you got to involve the people who are actually using it. So, because they know where the real inefficiencies lie, not consultants and not vendors. So I always say this: cloud cultures must be built from the inside out, not bought outside in. So the thing is like you all need to really take an honest inventory of your technical infrastructure. Do you have the data quality, security frameworks, and integration capability to support an AI implementation? If not, start there.
Great advice. Thank you very much for this. I hope people will take it seriously and start implementing that. This is awesome. And then finally, can you say how people can connect with you?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Yvette Schmitter. You can also look up Fusion Collective on LinkedIn. You can also I have a website, yvetteschmitter.net. You can reach out to Vit, he can get to me, but I'm really easily to connect with. So LinkedIn, I'm all over there. I also have a personal website, and I do read all of the messages that come to me. So I don't ghost people. If I can help you, I'll be more than willing to do that. If I can't, I'll let you know, but try to connect you with someone that can. So as long as you're not an AI, bot.
I don't respond to AI, right?
I don't respond to AI, right? I mean, I've gotten a couple of those. I don't know if you have been like the AI generated messages. Like,
yeah,
it's like, yeah, delete, block.
Yeah, it's I get all kind of crazy stuff in my inbox, so it's a good signature. Like I don't respond to AI. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Yvette. It was a pleasure having you on and wealth of knowledge.
Thank you so much.
Stay in touch.
Thank you so much for having me, Vic. All right.
Sure. Bye-bye.
Bye.